Thanks for tuning in to Curious Cat, where we examine the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. I'm your host, Jennifer Holtz. Join me every week as I explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit. Welcome to Curious Cat. The other morning, I woke up to snow and ended up filling my little journal page with psychopop fluorescent snowflake sketches. Each flake outside the window was a unique configuration, its own work of art, fragile, temporary beauties that melt away with the slightest drop in temperature. We're like that, unique, unlike anyone else on the planet, even if we're a twin. So even if our DNA strand is exactly the same as another, our experiences and points of view are one of a kind. Why am I shining a spotlight on this? Because herd mentality has become all too trendy in the last 3 years. And hand in hand with that is a collective squishing of the individual. Yeah, we're living at a time when everyone has the ability to put themselves out there, share their story on Facebook or Substack or Insta or TikTok, have a podcast, you name it. But at the exact same time, many are being shamed into believing their perspective isn't worth putting out there. Why? Because it is, quote, too mainstream or normal. Well, that's a damn shame. I'm all about exploring the opposite of the norms, and that's got me worried about individual voices vanishing. Each of us is on a soul journey. We are all on a specific and very individualized adventure. And integral to that is to remember and honor who you are, who I am, what your gifts and lessons are. And that is why I'm shining a light on celebrating you this week, your own uniqueness. Let's go deeper. So you're probably telling yourself, I can almost feel the resistance from behind the mic. We are all unique. Okay, take our perspectives, for example, our different points of view. Here's an example, a seat at the ballpark. So picture yourself in a 200 level seat. You're behind home plate. Imagine your view of the ball field. Now, how about the seat directly to your left or your right? The one directly in front and behind you. Those views are similar, there's no doubt, but they're not the same. They're just slightly off. Then taking that example further, take into account your eye level due to your height and maybe even your posture or how straight up you're holding your upper body. So if your team is down by 4 runs, you might be slouching like a little Eeyore sag. But if your team just hit a grand slam, you might be on your feet applauding. Still not convinced? Here's an experiment. Next time you're with a handful of people, like out to lunch with a friend or at your book club or at a board meeting or at a family dinner, have each person take 2 minutes, time it, to draw a quick sketch of a tree on the back of their napkin. After those 2 minutes, pass around the sketches. Look at all the different ways people express their version of a tree. Look at the different weights of the lines, the detail or broad strokes, the variations in confidence creating a piece of art, all that. All those tiny, teeny iterations are shifts in perspective and make for a unique point of view. We are all different, special, and unique beings. We're going to take a quick break at the top. And on the flip side, I'm going to share some research I did on some things we were taught were one of a kind and that might not be one-offs after all.
Many people are unaware just how much hypnotherapy can help them, or think it's only to help lose weight or quit smoking. But there is so much more hypnotherapy can do. It can help with stress, anxiety, insomnia, phobias, performance enhancement, connecting with your spirit guides and higher self. You can even discover past lives and your life between lives. Heal traumas, break habits, find your deepest truth, or just have fun discovering who you really are, all from the comfort of your home. I'm Monique Pliakis. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and I want to help you. Schedule a free consult by going to www.innerstandingshypnosis.com. That's INNERSTANDINGSHYPNOSIS.com. Innerstandings Hypnosis. Find your power and ignite your inner light.
Hey everybody, Karen Rontowski here. I hate to interrupt the Curious Cat podcast, one of my favorites, but if you want to double your paranormal fun when you're done here, come check out my show, Paranormal Karen. I interview exorcists, demonologists, healers, psychics, really anyone that can make a family gathering uncomfortable is on my show. If you want to see everything I do, go to KarenRontowski.com. And I know you're thinking, that sounds hard to spell. Well, it is. I have misspelled it on hundreds of tax forms. So if that doesn't work for you, go to psychicstandup.com or paranormalkaren.com. There you can find my Patreon, you can book a tarot reading, you can take a tarot class, you can find everything, including my stand-up comedy clips. That's right, I've been doing stand-up for 30 years. If you go to those places, you can also see my psychic stand-up show where I mix psychic and tarot readings. Yes, the future never looked so funny. So check me out at KarenRontowski.com, ParanormalKaren.com, or PsychicStandup.com. And can someone please find me a marketing person to put all this in one place? Now back to the show.
Welcome back. Before I get into the mythical one-of-a-kinds I promised, I wanted to mention that both Monique Pliakis of Innerstandings Hypnosis and Karen Rontowski have some phenomenal merch available on their websites if you're still looking for holiday gifts. Monique creates the most amazing organs, very magical and beautiful. They enhance any home or any garden, and they'd be well received by anybody you love. And Karen on KarenRontowski.com has some fantastic merch, great shirts that are funny and original like her, and there's coffee mugs, you name it. They're both fantastic human beings, and if you're spending your dollars consciously, give them a thought, and maybe they're the perfect fit. All right, so my research. I did some research on things we always believed, or at least were taught, to be one of a kind that they might not be. I did a quick search on, I don't know how to say it, Quora.com, and saw this response posted by ChatGPT. It says, quote, thinking that one's problems or struggles, like a barking dog when you're recording a podcast, for example, thinking they're unique or that no one else can understand them, this is a common misconception, as everyone goes through difficult times and many people can relate to similar struggles. Believing that one's talents or abilities are entirely self-made and not influenced by factors such as genetics, environment, or access to resources. Feeling that one's political or ideological beliefs are entirely original and not influenced by the people and ideas around them. Thinking that one's personal experiences and perspectives are the only valid ones and that others should conform to them. ChatGPT continues. It's so cynical, isn't it? But here it continues in the quote. It's important to remember that we all have unique experiences and perspectives, but that doesn't mean that others can't understand or relate to them. Additionally, many of our thoughts and beliefs are influenced by factors beyond ourselves, and it's important to be open to different perspectives and ideas. Okay, thanks, AI bot. Our human struggles aren't unique. Fine, whatever. I actually take a sort of comfort in that. Do you? I know that when my struggles involve, say, replacing a toilet seat or finding the right replacement battery for the home security system, I always give a huge thanks to all the YouTubers that have uploaded their videos on the same struggles with their resolutions. I'm constantly thanking those wonderful strangers for sharing their knowledge. But other things that aren't as unique as we were taught in school, the first thing that comes to mind, I talked about at the top, snowflakes. An article titled Mythbuster, No Two Snowflakes Are Alike? Very likely, but it's hard to prove. The author goes on to say, quote, "It may seem like this is a myth that would be easy to bust, but it's true. No two snowflakes are alike. Or at least they probably aren't, because of the sheer number of snowflakes that fall every winter, 1 septillion. It would be impossible to prove that no two snowflakes are identical, according to the Library of Congress." What's a septillion, you ask? It's a 1 followed by 24 zeros. Another way to think of it is that 1 septillion is the equivalent of a trillion. That's a lot of snowflakes. Snowflakes, the article continues, start to form when water vapor condenses around a tiny particle of dust high above the earth, as far as 6 miles above the ground. National Geographic reports this. They say these newly evolved particles then crystallize. These snowflakes are very sensitive to their microenvironments, which influences their appearance. Temperature impacts shape. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? And they go on to say between 27 and 32 degrees Fahrenheit, snowflakes are formed like 6-sided plates. A few degrees colder, the flakes take on a needle form. Even colder than that, snowflakes are a column form, fanning out into a fern-like star shape. Humidity also plays a role in the shape of snowflakes. Drier air means flatter flakes. As snowflakes fall, their original form shifts. But in certain conditions, if those conditions remain steady, more than one snowflake can take on the same original form. Oh my God, it felt like the author of the article suffered angst, admitting not all snowflakes are unique. But there you have it. How about fingerprints? Like snowflakes, the theory of our fingerprints being unique is largely assumed, but it's never been proven to be true. Even twins, it's often cited, have different fingerprints, but it's more complicated than assumptions. I found an article in the Smithsonian.com that addresses the myth of unique fingerprints and relates to the heavy usage of them in the early 1800s until DNA was on the forefront to identify perpetrators. Of course, I've put the links into the show notes so you can have careful consideration of the article, but here are some highlights. So right at the top, the article is titled The Myth of Fingerprints, and they say in the subtitle, police today increasingly embrace DNA tests as the ultimate crime-fighting tool. They once felt the same way about fingerprinting, says author Clive Thompson. At 9 a.m. last December 14th, a man in Orange County, California discovered he'd been robbed. Someone had swiped his Volkswagen Golf, his MacBook Air, and some headphones. The police arrived and did something that is increasingly a part of everyday crime fighting. They swabbed the crime scene for DNA. Normally, you might think of DNA as the province solely of high-profile crimes like murder investigations, where a single hair or drop of blood cracks a devilish case. Nope, these days, even local cops are wielding it to solve ho-hum burglaries. The police sent the swabs to the county crime lab and ran them through a beige photocopier-sized rapid DNA machine, a relatively inexpensive piece of equipment affordable even by smaller police forces. Within minutes, it produced a match to a local man who'd been previously convicted of identity theft and burglary. They had their suspect. DNA identification has gone mainstream. from the elite labs of CSI to your living room. When it first appeared over 30 years ago, it was an arcane technique. Now it's woven into the fabric of everyday life. California sheriffs use it to identify victims of their recent wildfires, and genetic testing firms offer to identify your roots if you mail them a sample. Yet, the DNA revolution has unsettling implications for privacy. After all, you can leave DNA on everything you touch, which means, sure, crimes can be more easily busted, but the government can also more easily track you. And while it's fun to learn about your genealogy, your cheek samples can wind up in places you never imagined. Family Tree DNA, a personal genetic service, in January admitted it was sharing DNA data with federal investigators to help them solve crimes. Meanwhile, consumer DNA testing firm 23andMe announced that it was now sharing samples sent to them with the pharmaceutical giant GlaxoSmithKline to make, quote, novel treatments and cures. That's a little unsettling. What happens to a society when there's suddenly a new way to identify people, to track them as they move around the world? That's a question that the denizens of the Victorian turn of the century pondered as they learned of a new technology to hunt criminals: fingerprinting. For centuries, they go on to say, scholars had remarked on the curious loops and whirls that decorated their fingerprints. In 1788, a scientist, J.C.A. Mayers, declared that patterns seemed unique, that the arrangement of skin ridges is never duplicated in two persons. It was an interesting observation, but one that lay dormant until 19th century society began to grapple with an emerging problem. How do you prove people are who they say they are? Carrying government-issued identification was not yet routine, as Colin Beavan, author of Fingerprints, writes. Cities like London were booming, becoming crammed full of strangers and packed full of crime. The sheer sprawl of the population hindered the ability of police to do their work because unless they recognized criminals by sight, they had few reliable ways of verifying identities. A first-time offender would get a light punishment. A habitual criminal would get a much stiffer jail sentence. But how could the police verify whether a perpetrator they hauled in had ever been caught previously? When recidivists got apprehended, they'd just give out a fake name and claim it was their first crime. A lot of that is the function of increasing anonymity in modern life, notes Charles Rzepka, a Boston University professor who studies crime fiction. There's this problem of what Edgar Allan Poe calls the man of the crowd. It even allowed for devious cons. One man in Europe claimed to be Roger Tichborne, a long-lost heir to a family baronetcy, and police had no way to prove he was or wasn't. Faced with this problem, police tried various strategies for identification. Photographic mugshots helped, but they were painstakingly slow to search through. In the 1880s, a French police official named Alphonse Bertillon created a system for recording 11 body measurements of a suspect. But that was difficult to do accurately. The idea of fingerprints gradually dawned on several different thinkers. One was Henry Faulds, a Scottish physician who was working as a missionary in Japan in the 1870s. One day, while sifting through shards of 2,000-year-old pottery, he noticed that the ridge patterns of the potter's ancient fingerprints were still visible. He began inking prints of his colleagues at the hospital and noticing they seemed unique. Faulds even used prints to solve a small crime. An employee was stealing alcohol from the hospital and drinking it in a beaker. Faulds located a print left on the glass, matched it to a print he'd taken from a colleague, and presto, identified the culprit. How reliable were prints, though? Could a person's fingerprints change? To find out, Faulds and some students scraped off their fingertip ridges and discovered they grew back in precisely the same pattern. When he examined children's development over 2 years, Faulds found their prints stayed the same. By 1880, he was convinced and wrote a letter to the journal Nature, arguing that prints could be a way for police to deduce identity. When bloody finger marks or impressions on clay, glass, etc. exist, Faulds wrote, they may lead to the scientific identification of criminals. So other thinkers were endorsing and exploring the idea and began trying to create a way to categorize prints. Sure, fingerprints were great in theory, but they were truly useful only if you could quickly match them to a suspect. The breakthrough in matching prints came from Bengal, India. Azizul Haque, the head of identification for the local police department, developed an elegant system that categorized prints into subgroups based on their pattern types, such as loops and whorls. It worked so well that a police officer could find a match in only 5 minutes, so lots faster than the hour it used to take. Fingerprinting was now a core tool in crime busting, mere months after Henry set up shop. London officers used it to fingerprint a man they'd arrested for pickpocketing. The suspect claimed it was his first offense, but when the police checked his prints, they discovered he was Benjamin Brown, a career criminal from Birmingham, who'd been convicted 10 times and printed only while in custody multiple times. So when they confronted him with their analysis, he admitted his true identity. "Bless the fingerprints," Brown said, as Bevan writes, "I knew they'd do me in." So within a few years, prints spread around the world. Fingerprinting promised to inject hard-nosed objectivity into the fuzzy world of policing. Prosecutors historically relied on witness testimony to place a criminal in a location, and testimony is subjective. The jury might not find the witness credible, but fingerprints were an inviolable, immutable truth, as prosecutors and professional fingerprint examiners began to proclaim. The fingerprint expert has only facts to consider, he reports, simply what he finds. The lines of identification are either there or they are not, as one print examiner argued in 1919. Prosecutors wrung high drama out of this curious new technique when Thomas Jennings in 1910 was the first U.S. defendant to face a murder trial that relied on fingerprinted evidence. Prosecutors handed out blown-up copies of the prints to the jury. In other trials, they would stage live courtroom demonstrations of print lifting and print matching. It was, in essence, the birth of the showy forensic policing that we now see on CSI-style television shows. Perpetrators were brought low by the scientific scrutiny. Indeed, criminals themselves were so intimidated by the prospect of being fingerprinted that in 1907, a suspect arrested by Scotland Yard desperately tried to slice off his own prints while in the paddy wagon. Yet it also became clear over time that fingerprinting wasn't as rock solid as boosters would suggest. Police experts would often proclaim in court that no two people have identical prints. Even though this has never been proven or even studied, it's still not proven. Although the idea was plausible and people just asserted it, they were eager to claim the infallibility of the science, but you can see all the errors. Even as fingerprints were viewed as unmistakable, plenty of people were mistakenly sent to jail. Simon Cole notes that at least 23 people in the United States have been wrongly connected to crime scene prints. In North Carolina in 1985, Bruce Baston was arrested for murder and spent 13 months in jail before the print analyst realized he made a blunder. Nonetheless, the reliability of fingerprinting today is rarely questioned in modern courts. One exception was J. Spencer Letts, a federal judge in California, who in 1991 became suspicious of fingerprint analysts who'd testified in a bank robbery trial. Letts was astounded to hear that the standard for declaring that two prints matched varied widely from county to county. Letts threw out the fingerprint evidence from that trial, saying, quote, "I don't think I'm ever going to use fingerprint testimony again," he said in court, sounding astonished. I've had my faith shaken, but for other judges, the faith still holds. I found an article on Atlas blog titled 5 Reasons Why You Are Totally Unique. Written by Lee Stewart, here are a few highlights. You are not average. It's proven by science. Here are 5 excellent reasons why one size does not fit all when it comes to your health. Averages are nice and convenient if you're dealing with high volumes of humans, but it's time to stop looking at people like numbers and start seeing we truly are totally unique beings. The article continues. Reason number 1, DNA is what makes your body tick. And because we are not clones, every human's genome is unique in its own special way. It starts with your genes. The 4-letter code that provides a blueprint of your body is unlike anyone else's, and it's made up of nucleotides, A, G, C, T. Reason number 2, microbiome. It's yours alone. Trillions of bacterial cells live inside your large intestine, and their activities influence your whole body health, not just your gut. There's about 1.5 kilograms of bacteria living in your colon right now. Lovely thought, right? But until recently, we couldn't see what they were doing. It is DNA sequencing technology made it possible to screen your stool and identify the bacterial genes in it. Every person's gut microbiome is a unique ecosystem with a multitude of different bacteria doing an array of tasks you wouldn't have thought possible. Research now indicates that they start to colonize your gut before you even leave the womb. Reason number 3, lifestyle. No one does it quite like you. Erratic schedules, exercise or lack of it, electronics, bad habits, they can all disturb your body's processes and make it less resilient. Health isn't just about a set of biological parameters that you have been given. Every day, your lifestyle, environment, and social interactions can influence how your body deals with the workload, inflammation, and even affects how your genes act. For example, it's well known that the body's insulin response doesn't work well at night. In addition to that, the digestive system is primed for eating and digestion in the morning, but this slowly wanes until nighttime when it's least efficient. Reason number 4, diet. Every little bit counts. What you put in your body is a fundamental feature of health and illness, but it can be hard to make the right choices nowadays. Recent decades have seen a plethora of studies on the implications of your diet on your body, and now your microbiomes too. In fact, your diet is one of the most important factors when it comes to maintaining a balanced and healthy gut system. But that's not all. Getting enough fiber from whole plant source influences a lot more than just gut bacteria, because different types of fiber do different things. Some can help manage blood sugar and cholesterol levels. Others help food move through the intestines. Fruit, veggies, grains, legumes, seeds, and nuts also contain plant nutrients called phytonutrients that can help control inflammation and combat the oxidizing damage to our cells that's caused by too many free radicals. Okay, and finally, reason number 5, family. It's not a life sentence. Your biological blueprint was given to you by many generations of humans that preceded you on both sides of the family. There are 2 different ways your genes can influence your health, either directly by predisposing you to a hereditary genetic disease or by carrying gene variants that affect your body's metabolism, which can create your risk of common diseases like diabetes and cancer. Hereditary genetic diseases occur when 2 parents pass down specific gene variants to their children. In many cases, the child will only inherit a carrier status, which means they won't become ill, but they can pass it on to their children. However, the risk of hereditary disease is often increased in small, tight-knit population groups who don't tend to marry outside their community for religious or cultural reasons. Here's something I found funny, but feels true. Since the 1970s, there's been a 400% increase in our collective belief in ghosts. Yes, as podcaster and writer Harry Enton writes, belief in the supernatural is becoming, well, normal, he says. He has an excellent article, which I've linked to in the show notes, and he talks about being willing to do anything, be in a scary dark road in the middle of nowhere, and get freaked out because he is trying to learn things about the American mind. He was looking for ghosts. He says, do you believe in them? My friend and CNN colleague, Chase Masters, does. And recently I learned she's one of nearly 50% of Americans who do. Chase tried to explain to me why she did, and in doing so, I think summed up two sometimes competing worldviews. You're a numbers guy, right? So you're like always in the thick of data. Facts, Masters said. And with ghosts, it's not as much hard and fast data as much as it is a feeling or almost like a faith. That exchange is from the first episode of his podcast, Margins of Error. The polling-inspired title is a play on the fact that there are a lot of stories that may seem to be on the margins at first glance, but are actually where the fun and knowledge really begin. He started the podcast because he loves numbers and statistics. He was the kind of kid that liked to memorize the back of baseball cards, etc. And ghosts are not his thing, but he shared about what he learned. That he, when he was like delving to learn about the American mind, he said numbers can help us learn about things in our society that might not be readily apparent. In the case of ghosts, he was shocked to learn that Americans believe in them. That belief has skyrocketed 400% since the late 1970s. That number is a starting place for him. It's a reason to explore a topic. And that's why it's the subject of his first episode, how the paranormal became pretty normal. It's really cute. I've linked to it in the show notes, and you can check out his podcast. It's kind of adorable. And I encourage you to do that. I feel like I've pounded home my take that we are all unique individuals. Here's some ways to celebrate our individuality. So I found it from a Forbes article, and I hope you like it. It was actually based on employee belonging. Why celebrating individuality is the recipe for business success. So, I'm just going to read a few bits from it because I thought it was beautiful, and we can take these lessons home to us in any group we interact with. As businesses and as leaders, we've been tested in recent years. There have been pandemic-induced changes in work practices, a whole shakeup in work-life balance, and a power shift that puts people front and center. That's all positive stuff in this author's book. Why? Because I've been beating the same drum for years that people are any organization's biggest and best asset, that they should be a fundamental priority in your strategy, and not because it's all nice and fluffy, but because it's a better way to do business, plain and simple. Enter belonging, one of the top human capital issues businesses face today. But what exactly is it? To understand it and foster it, we need to define it. At my company, it's about making our people feel seen, heard, and accepted for who they are, not just for who they are when they step through the office doors, but for who they are outside the office too, for who they are, full stop. Belonging will be defined differently from organization to organization. He goes on to say, it will always contain the building blocks of recognition and reward, connection and expression and support. We've all been there. The last pick on the playing field as teams are being chosen. It's not about the popularity contest necessarily. It's about feeling respected for what you can do, being valued and appreciated for what you can bring to the team. And really, your business is just a giant team. And this massive team, well, it can thrive if there's a culture of belonging, if everyone appreciates what each person brings to the table, if there is an authenticity to the relationships and if there's an appreciation for the unique differences between people and how that can make your organization better. He asks us to encourage diversity of thought, being open to the new and different perspectives that each individual can offer is essential. Now, this only works if there's a common purpose and a framework within which you can operate. Everyone will have an opinion about how to approach, manage, and fulfill an action. This is what you want. This innovation can keep you moving forward. As leaders, we do not have all the answers. This approach recognizes that and will only work if we recognize that. A workplace where people feel safe to share their authentic opinions indicates that said workplace sees and respects them for who they are. And this feeling leads to a sense of belonging. As leaders, we need to be the cheerleaders for our people, advocating their ideas and celebrating them. How can we foster a sense of belonging in real terms? He says create a safe working environment. Communicate and build long-lasting relationships. Support employee-led initiatives. Celebrate the individuals that work for you and their achievements. And nurture a culture of belonging. Since Maslow defined his hierarchy in 1943, belonging has been identified as a basic human need. It plays an elemental role in people's lives, and so it should in business. As with so many essential structural components, it is founded in your organization's culture. Therefore, at the heart of a thriving culture of belonging lies the aptitude and attitude of its leaders. They need to be able to appreciate the differences in people for their value, and they need to have a genuine drive and tools to support others to become the best they can be. I thought that was sweet. In doing so, he finishes, they celebrate individuality. Then, in harnessing the power of the individual, they create a collective, a team of beautifully proficient, diverse thinkers. That's the magic that makes it happen. A grounded sense of belonging and purpose. And I thought that was a really great article, and that was by Joanna Swash at Forbes.com. Other ways to celebrate your individuality are to express yourself through your fashion. What is something you love or maybe even collect? Like pins, little lapel pins. Find a way to incorporate a pin into your outfit, whether it's on a lapel or a necktie or handbag strap. Another way to express and delight in you is through makeup or your jewelry, anything glittery. Music is yet another way you can be fully and completely yourself. If you feel disconnected on what makes you, you, begin with a simple exercise that involves looking backward in time. As a kid, when were you happiest? Were you riding your bike, finger painting, visiting a natural history museum? What books did you love as a kid? What cartoons or comics? It's easy to make a list of likes when we look backward. It's so much easier. So help that list inform what makes you, you right now. If you said museums, take time in the next few weeks to visit a local historical place or a museum in your town. There are so many internet sites right now filled with strange and unique spots across the globe. If you happen to live near one, go explore it. If you said comic books interest you as a kid, why not take a trip to a comic shop? Did you love sports? Maybe gymnastics? Try out a local yoga beginners class or even a YouTube yoga class. That's what I'm doing. If baseball is your jam, why not catch a little league game on your block? If hockey's your thing, go to the local college and watch the kids on the ice. Making the smallest move towards unearthing what makes you, you, will bring you a fount of information and clarity, and it will open the door for other memories to come forward of what is you, what defines you. I can't help myself. Before I close, even with Cooper barking his face off below us, I wanted to share some statistics with you. Pick a couple of the categories I'm about to say and the hundreds of others which I didn't even touch upon. And what you'll find is our activities and beliefs in different ratios and combinations pretty much ensure we are all broke the mold after we were made originals. Okay, 676 people have been to space in total. 43 million people face blindness. 20 people total have been killed by polar bears. That one stunned me. 12 people have been to the moon. Thousands of people have reported they were abducted by aliens. 6,338 different people have reached the summit of Mount Everest. Yes, demographers estimate 117 billion humans have lived and died, and some continue to live over the course of the last 192,000 years. You, remarkable, wonderful, multi-talented, lovable you are part of that delicious mix. I hope today's discussion helps you to realize you are as one of a kind as any treasure on earth. There is no one, nor has there ever been anyone exactly like you on the planet. You have a unique point of view due to your individual life experiences. At the very least, if you feel compelled, express yourself. Add your voice, your take on the world to the conversation, to the walls of an art gallery, to the speakers of a local pub on karaoke night, or to a family gathering as you share a memory or your own story. You are important. You are expressing yourself. Being you casts ripples that help others to remember who they are and share that in love. Thank you for listening to Curious Cat. Did you hear the good news? Curious Cat is number 20 on the top 100 list of best supernatural podcasts on Good Pods. Hooray! Be sure to subscribe on your favorite listening app. And if you love the content, recommend us to a friend. Until next time, stay curious. I love you.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Holtz, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Holtz, spelled HOTES.com.